It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to my colleagues from National Bank of Greece for inviting me. A couple of things. I'm feeling a little bit inferior. Yesterday, EBRD celebrated its 25th anniversary. So we are really quite a baby in comparison to the National Bank of Greece. But I do hope that our commitment to sustainability is at least equal, if not greater. And I think just on a personal point, I wanted to say attitudes to sustainability are very much down to individuals. I have the luxury of being of that age that I've seen a dramatic change in England. And I'm fully committed to recycling. And when I moved to Greece last year, I religiously put my plastic, my paper, aluminium separately into bags and then walked round the corner to put them in a big, large bin where everything was muddled up together. Never mind, I still continue to do that. My other very minor contribution, I used to cycle to work in the UK. So this week I started just cycling to work here in Athens. I'm surprised I'm the only cyclist that I see in the morning. So please, if any of you are driving along Vouliagmenis and you see that lone cyclist, just give me a wide berth, please. So, sustainable development. It means different things to different people. You've had lots of views today. And I will talk very much about EBRD's view. I'm aware of the UN and its 17 global goals, but don't ask me to list them, and the EU's non-disclosure policy, which I think is the most unimaginative way of describing sustainability. I also understand that the Greek code has come into practice, and this is really good news for EBRD because we have an environment and social policy and mandate throughout all of our operations. And just as earlier was said, GIZ and KFW can do business with you more easily if you adhere to a code. We actually require you to adhere to a code. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the work we've done with banks and with non-banks. But just in case some of you don't know who EBRD is, because we are new to Greece, we were set up in 1991 in the wake of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and it was specifically to move the economies of Central and Eastern Europe, the Comecon bloc, and the Soviet Union from a command economy to a market economy. Over the years, we've added other countries, Mongolia, Turkey, and then after the Arab Spring, there was Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, Jordan. 2014, Cyprus requested that it become a country of operation. And then last year, Greece. Now, Cyprus and Greece are very unusual because they were both shareholders in the EBRD since its inception in 91, and they were the first countries that sort of crossed the table from being donors to potential recipients. And consequently, both countries are only eligible for our investments for a limited period of time, and that's until the end of 2020. So we can only make new investments until the end of 2020. So since its inception, EBRD, probably because of the issues in the former Soviet Union with respect to energy, has included in sustainability, mainly energy efficiency, at the heart of its business. So we've been doing it for about 12 years. The first program was the Sustainable Energy Financing Framework in Bulgaria in 2004, and I'll say a little bit about that later. But since then, I think our cumulative track record is 977 projects, that's of last year, for a total value of 95 billion, out of which EBRD financed 17 billion, because obviously we don't finance all of a project. Going back to a little bit to EBRD, again, we're not a commercial bank, so we're not like NBG, but we do have commerciality as our mandate. We're owned by 65 countries and 2 institutions. The name suggests we're more European than anything else. It can be a bit of a misnomer because our largest shareholder is the US with 10%, although the European countries individually and the 2 institutions, which are EIB and EU, overall hold a majority. And the diversity of our shareholder base goes from sort of Mongolia to Mexico, which aren't very European. The founding agreements, which are available on our website, actually state categorically that environment and sustainability is at the core of all of our activities. And we have a specific policy, and we also do reviews of our various work, and they're all available on our website. I really would recommend you have a look. We've also got a lot of resources available to people who are interested, whether that's sectoral or anything else. So, Bulgaria in 2004, which is our flagship sort of energy saving, energy efficiency program, and it enabled us to reach out to thousands of SMEs by providing finance, technical assistance to 9 commercial banks in Bulgaria. And so it was a response to the situation in Bulgaria at the time. They were decommissioning very old nuclear power stations, and that meant that the cost of energy was going to rise dramatically. So it was very important for businesses, not because of sustainability, it was an economic sort of driver. They had to save costs on energy. So the CEF model was then replicated over a number of countries and has become very popular. It's something that we would really like to do in Greece, but it is quite intensive in terms of grant components. So we can't do it by lending alone. People have to be incentivized often to invest in things that are energy efficient or indeed contribute to sustainable development. We also need grants to do some of the training. We train people in the SMEs, we train people in the banks. We also engage in policy dialogue with respective governments. So we have touched on this with the Greek government to see if we can use some of the structural funds, but we're still waiting to see what happened. So after the original launch of the CEF, it became a more mainstream product, and we talked about the Sustainable Energy Initiative, and that was brought in 2006. And that wasn't just SMEs, it went across all of our operations. So we would finance energy efficiency components even in large corporates. We would provide grant funding for energy audits. We could give recommendations on the sort of equipment or technology that a company could adopt. And we would set benchmarks as to how much energy was saved to ensure that what we were doing actually did have some sort of results. And as time goes along, the Sustainable Energy Initiative was then sort of replaced in 2013 with the Sustainable Resource Initiative. And that added other components like saving water, which is crucial in some of our countries of operation, Central Asia and what we call CEMED, Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, etc. But it also looked at resource management to ensure that resources were effectively used and waste was also recycled or reused. So it was a response to a resource challenge, but it added on to all the various other initiatives that we did. Again, it combines the sort of model that we tend to use in all of our countries, which is a combination of finance, of technical assistance, or technical cooperation funds, and policy dialogue. So where are we today? SEI and SRI have now graduated into, or been rebranded into something called the Green Economy Transition, or we call it Get in the Bank. This is still very new, so it's in its infancy. We're still trying to see how it's going to be applied throughout the bank. It obviously continues to use the basic energy efficiency, resource efficiency, but it will also bring in new technology and new instruments. Our president recently declared that 40% of our business volume will be aimed at green economy technology by 2020, which is, last year we did 9.4 billion in investments and loans, so that's a huge amount in terms of directing it towards the green economy. Now, to enable us to deliver all of this, I'm a mere banker, I don't understand the technicalities, but we've got an in-house team, the Sustainable Resources and Climate Change team, and there's more than 40 specialists, and they advise different people within the bank who are handling various investments, and in fact our clients, how best to approach these different initiatives. So we offer dedicated resources, we can provide analysis, and we can help each company that wants to borrow to develop a plan to address the challenges that have been identified. So every single transaction that we do at EBRD has to have a review by our environmental and social department, and it's given a rating. The highest is obviously along a spectrum. The highest rating is an A-class project, and an A-class project is a huge amount of work. We've actually, just to give you an example of something that we're doing now in Greece, we have an A-class project, and it had to go through an ESIA, Environmental Sustainability Impact Assessment. And the result of that is 800 pages, which are also all translated into Greek. These are made publicly available. They're also on our website. And this is before we actually provide the financing to the company. So it gives the authorities, it gives NGOs, the public, the company, opportunities to comment on what we're doing and to highlight if there's any inadequacies. I find it hard to imagine, after all the work that goes into it, that there would be, but it is there and it's available for comment. And just to try and give you a little bit of the a sort of flavor of the sort of detail that goes into this huge document. It includes things like a stakeholder engagement plan. Obviously, these change depending on the type of project, but stakeholder engagement plan, the objectives and rationale, project compatibility with the region, environment and social scoping, emergencies and risks, impact assessment, mitigation management measures. And then there's annexes, and the annexes will have maps and drawings, geophysical surveys, ecological surveys, chemical analysis, pollution, etc., etc. So that's at the extreme end of what we do as EBRD. But even something that may be seen as benign as investing in a bank like the National Bank of Greece also has an element. So as you probably know, we invested in all 4 banks at the recap last year, and all of the banks signed what we call a framework agreement. It's not very complex, but it says, yes, we'll adhere to EBRD's policies and procedures, and yes, we'll implement aspects of EBRD's policies and procedures. We'll train our personnel, and we provide an online course for that training. And we'll report to you once a year, not in detail on every single loan, but we'll report to you and let you know if we have actually undertaken any A-category projects. And we'll give you an indication of what we've done in each of the different categories. That's something, so, another investment we made was in a private equity fund. They have a similar arrangement. They have to adhere to our policies and procedures, and they have to report to us once a year. Now, a company like the one that I described, that was the Category A company, to measure the sort of success of our environmental assessment, we set certain benchmarks, and then we will come back on an annual basis and see where the company is vis-a-vis those benchmarks. I won't go into the detail because it's quite technical, but we are required to have measurements in each of the deals that we do to ensure that we are implementing what we preach. So I think we can say that we take sustainability quite seriously. Should any of you be interested in trying to get finance from EBRD, I think you do have to take it into account that our requirements are very, very strict. I sometimes describe ourselves as a fairly sort of high-maintenance girlfriend, and if you want to eventually get married, you go through a long dating process that's really quite intense in terms of time and commitment. But we're happy to help. We want to ensure that companies in Greece, across the spectrum, take sustainability to heart. It has to make sense financially. Very few people do it purely altruistically, but it usually does make sense. And we're happy to help you look at what sorts of projects would fit into that. So we've got a wealth of information available on the website. Please do have a look at it. And if you've got any questions at another time, please contact us. We're based here in Athens. Thank you very much for your attention.